Hello and welcome to episode number 38 of the Wonder of Stuff podcast, broadcast live on Google Hangouts on air every weekend. This week, as always, is a Monday. It's a Sunday. Sorry, we're a few minutes late because Google Hangouts again lets me down. I get a little button up to say when I'm ready to go on air, and it wasn't there. So I've had to go out and come back in again. Oh, technical world. Anyway, so this is the place where you'll find news, information, and commentary on science, engineering, and technology subjects from the past week and beyond, and anything else that interests us from inside our tiny little human brains. This week, it's another double header. My colleague Richard is here with me. We were supposed to have somebody else, but that didn't come out. It fell through. And Ross is still gallivanting his way through Europe. So it's just us two again. Anyway, say hello, Richard.
Hello, Richard.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to get started straight away without further ado. And we're going to start off with Richard's topic tonight. We've got a couple of big topics and then some other little stuff that we can talk about. And this one's about growing brains in a Petri dish, really, isn't it? About lab-grown brains.
Yeah. Did you see this story?
I saw this. This went mainstream, didn't it? Briefly. I think I heard it on Radio 4 broadcast, but it wasn't big, but it should have been big, I would have thought.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out, why it's not been as big as it is, because it should be massive, but maybe if I start talking about it, it might come out why it's not as big as maybe you'd expect. So this is by the Military Health System Research Symposium in Fort Lauderdale in Florida. They've done this.
So it's a military-based research project.
It is.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or at least that's the title of the organization. Whether the staff are all military, I don't know. But this is a complete brain, basically, that's been grown. It's been grown from adult human skin cells. It's the size of a pencil eraser. It resembles that of a 5-week-old fetus's brain. Takes 12 weeks to grow it, but it's what you would expect in terms of normal development that a 5-week-old fetus would have. It is the most complete model yet. It's an entire brain. It's got 99% of cell types and genes that you would have in a brain, because that is the diversity of a brain at 5 weeks in development. It has a spinal cord, signaling circuitry, retina, and the mind boggles what they could do with it.
So it's a small. So we're talking pencil eraser, which is like that size.
Yeah.
It obviously, when you say spinal cord, it has a stem at the bottom of the brain, but not the full spinal cord.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And it's what the full lobes and the cerebral cortex and everything. It's all there.
Full thing.
Wow, why is that not on the news?
Don't know, but maybe it's because it's been very secretive in development. It hasn't been peer reviewed, and the reason for that is it's a commercial project, so it's being patented. How they've developed it is going to be patented. So it's fallen under some criticism in that all the claims, without peer review, how can you really say that it's science and that it's real, basically, until you get the peer review?
So this leads to other questions, which I'm not necessarily saying that you could answer, but it sounded like the organization was a military organization, but it's private. It just sounds like it's a private project and it's patented. It just all sounds. They all don't fit. Yeah.
No, there's still a lot of unanswered questions around it, and hopefully that will come out in the next few weeks. Because clearly they're ready to talk. They're ready to bring it public because they've announced it. So there's obviously going to be more developments coming out of this now, but this is what they've announced. Whether or not it all stands up to scrutiny remains to be seen.
And how do you? Well, I get this is kind of rhetorical because I don't expect you to know this, but how do you sense and work out that a brain the size of a pencil has got all of its functions?
Well, basically, at a cellular level, it is the same. According to them, it represents what you would have in a brain. It's been grown from skin cells, but it's obviously been coded to grow in the way that a brain would grow. And they're saying it's a complete model. It is a full brain.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess the little healthy bit of skepticism that we both have here is that there's no peer review. So anybody can say anything, and take a photograph and go, look, this is X. But if nobody can reproduce it, or nobody thinks that the process of reproducing it actually would possibly feasibly work, then we're kind of.
I mean, we don't even know if it's real effectively. I mean, there's all sorts of claims get made. We talked about on the subject of brains. We talked about people doing brain transplants a while ago. Now that the scientific community finds that absolutely laughable. It makes newspapers, all the big newspapers are running the story and the claims of this scientist. However, that doesn't make it scientist. The fact that a scientist is saying it, science is the result of peer review, basically modern science. So until it's peer reviewed, it's not science. So it remains to be seen. But it would be, I mean, that hasn't stopped the scientific community speculating on what this could mean. Basically, this would be a perfect model for testing drugs for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. The regions that those diseases and many degenerative diseases, even though they occur late on in life, those regions of the brain are fully present at 5 weeks. So you could study those. Ethically, it's interesting as well. There should be absolutely no ethical concerns at all. It's debate, there's a lot of debate around the stem cell thing, especially in the US, in the conservative parts of the US. I mean, I guess you and I probably don't find that morally problematic. However, I can't see how you could have an ethical issue with it, really, because it's adult human skin cells. The brain's not conscious. So it seems like it's a perfect solution.
Well, I mean, I and probably you to greater and lesser extent, find more ethical dilemmas with doing experiments on other creatures.
Yeah.
That don't necessarily transfer into to humans. So if you're so I see less problem doing it on a human if it's going to benefit a human, than trying to do it on something else that has no real wish to have a whatever, something's poked in his ear or his eye or whatever.
Yeah. The consent thing, I mean, like you're saying, it would just mean that if you do it on a mice, often the studies don't translate, as you've alluded to. So a lot of the time it's just in terms, forget the ethical thing, just in terms of utility. You could do it on mice brains and it may not tell you anything about how it'll work on human brains. So
what I do find it quite, again, the skeptical part of me is sort of like, I've got a little alert sign. I find it interesting that up until this point, the only lab grown human sort of body parts or whatever it have been fairly simple stuff like ears.
Well, yes.
Well,
okay. Not simple.
But they weren't. But the ears that they were grown in the petri dish weren't the full inner ear. They were more just the outside of the ear, so people could transplant them onto a.
Well, actually, on that subject, there's a performing artist in France who's had a team grow an ear inside of his arm. It sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it's true. And his plan with that is it's a fully functioning ear. So he's got his own 2 ears. But the idea of this one is he's going to put that ear online. So it's going to have a Wi-Fi chip embedded into it. And then basically you can come on the internet and listen to whatever that ear's hearing. He's just going to have that on. So basically that's going to be his basically listen to what I'm doing.
That's wonderful.
With a ability to hear online what's going on.
I guess what I'm saying is the complexity of growing a brain is multiple orders of magnitude more complicated than growing little bits of little parts of body parts.
Well, it is if you're thinking of it from an engineering point of view, but I guess if you can get the programming right, that's the amazing thing about biology. Isn't it amazing that a single egg and a single sperm, so you're starting off with one cell, can become, a chicken's egg that you would eat, and even more amazingly can develop into an embryo and develop into a full organism.
I suppose so. Yeah.
From that one,
you've got the template. You've already got the template.
You've got the code. So
you're just going to kick started.
Yeah. So that's all they've done is they've took skin cells, they've put the code into it, and then the rest is embryonic development, isn't it? So they've that's how they do it.
It's got.
You can clone a human by that logic. Do you know what I mean? So you can clone a full human. It just hasn't been done, but because of ethical reasons that we know of. But it could be done.
Yeah, Frankenstein's already there, man. It's somebody's got it in a lockup.
I mean, that Dolly the sheep was a full.
It was
higher organism cloned from a single cell, wasn't it? So
yeah,
or two cells, I guess.
So I guess the reason why it hasn't been picked up, well, I can only assume that the reason why it hasn't been picked up by mainstream media is because of the unratified nature of it.
I think it's been picked up. I just don't think it's made that big of a story, which I don't know if that's a bit disheartening of the time we live in, or whether or not the media's. I find it hard to believe that certain media outlets are holding back until the facts are in, because they don't.
I think we've already said this on a number of occasions, that the actual amount of journalists who understand the science areas is quite small in most large organizations. I know, there are people. I mean, the BBC only have a very small amount of science journalists who are, capable of understanding stuff like this.
Yeah,
and that's not, I see. I regularly listen to Today program in the morning, and I always get the feeling that John Humphreys does pour scorn on lots of the scientific. It's all like sort of, we point and laugh at this, and I think that's not just to single out John Humphreys, but there's a lot of that. There's a lot like, what have these wacky scientists come up with now?
I've noticed that with him, because he does seem a bit dismissive with science stories. And then I thought, oh, well, maybe that's just the combative nature. But then when you hear him on political stories, he's quite nuanced, and he's not that sort of simplistic about it. So I think it is that he just doesn't. I
think he doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
And that's lots of people are like that. When, if I don't understand it, if I have no comprehension of a topic, I will ridicule it.
Mind you, they do have some very knowledgeable people on Radio 4 as well, as guests, as panel shows. Where there is a science hour as well, isn't there? Where they.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's the Melvin Bragg show that's on sort of like 9 o'clock on In Our Time and stuff like this, and that's very. Sometimes I don't understand what's going on there.
What's that combative? That one where they always have like a very robust discussion. It's often got Michael Portillo and Ken and Malik on and stuff like that. That one, they often cover science stories. They know their stuff on there.
And obviously, there's the things. Well, Science Now, which is the new program, which is really good, which we've already talked about. Some things that have popped up on there, but generally, I don't know. Perhaps it's any or all of none of those reasons. But there does seem to be a lack of science, and when it does appear, it quite often gets dismissed. But I would have thought that would have been an incredible.
You would have thought so, especially where they're saying it's going to go next, because what they're saying is the only thing that's stopping them going further is a network of blood vessels. So they haven't been able to produce that, which implies they're working on that. You'd obviously have to make, if you want to carry on down the same line, you'd obviously have to make an entirely artificial heart, which, funnily enough, seems to be more complicated to do, which is one of those interesting things, isn't it? The heart, you're always told that it's kind of just a mechanical pump, and obviously all the thinking is done in the brain clearly, but the heart is a complex thing as well.
But I mean, they've made a mechanical heart. They've obviously got Berlin hearts. So even if they don't have at that stage a biological heart, then perhaps they can still use a Berlin heart.
I think this might be the interesting thing. If you wanted to sort of refactor something,
Berlin heart, isn't it? The artificial heart is Berlin heart.
It is, yeah. If you wanted to refactor something, or I was going to say construct from scratch, but that is refactoring. If you want to refactor something and re-engineer it, it would seem that a brain is impossible, and obviously we can't get there with computers at all, and certainly not in terms of consciousness and things. However, if you want to just program the DNA, it seems as though a brain's not too difficult, and actually a heart and a nervous system and a blood circulation system is the harder thing to do by the sounds of it. But that's what they want to do next, is a full spinal cord and a circulatory system, basically.
Circulatory system, central nervous system, they would seem hard things to do as well.
Yeah,
I would guess.
Nervous system, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think actually that's the thing that makes the brain transplant laughable. It's not actually keeping the brain alive. They believe that they can do that. The community is not that skeptical about that. It's the fact that we know people with spinal injuries, we can't get them walking again. So we're going to fully sever someone's spine and then get that working again. That's the part that's implausible.
Yeah, because if you can do that now, why can't you do it with transplants?
Precisely.
You know, there'd be lots of paraplegic people who then would just literally stand up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's counter arguments to that where it's about the cleanness of the cut, and if you cut it exactly and you knew where everything was, but no, I don't think the scientific community shares that view yet.
So interesting. So maybe that's something that one of the many things that we always say we catch up with and never do. But
we will if something. I mean, if it starts becoming main news,
if it gets published, there's a great thing because we'll actually have something to read and inwardly digest. We may not fully understand the whole thing, but we'll at least have something that somebody's actually peer reviewed and can say, not working, or this is possible. Right, okay, we'll leave that there. We're going to go on to the next subject, which is one of mine. Now, as you'll know, if you've listened to the podcast for a good few months now, I'm interested in food science, food technology, and feeding the planet with as little, most efficiently, and with as little adverse effects to our fellow creatures. Now, we've covered companies like Impossible Foods and Hampton Creek, who have their remit is to make meat-like substances, meat-like foodstuffs, but based from non-animal creation, so plant-based, in other words. But this is slightly different. I'd for some reason not really come across this until a couple of weeks ago, where one of the managers at work, Gareth, who may or may not be watching tonight, but he started on using Soylent. Now, for those of you who don't know what Soylent is, I have a picture of a man, and that man is we'll say inventor, but for one of the better word, he's called Rob Reinhardt, and he is or was a software engineer from Silicon Valley. And back in 2013, he started a blog and a food experiment on his blog to produce a powdered meal replacement product. And he did it for a number of reasons, but the first reason was that at the time he went to start up a company and it failed miserably, and he was broke. He didn't have enough money to feed himself properly. So he thought, is there a way that I can get all the nutrients but with minimal outlay? And he invented this Soylent product online, blogged all about it, told of what was in it. And interestingly, Gareth, from where I work, Richard, he actually says that you and him were separated at birth, believe it or not. I can't personally see it because he's clearly got ginger tash. But there you go. Anyway, So I was introduced to it when Gareth at work said, I'm going to do the Soylent diet. Now, interesting. This Richard told me about this, but I kind of knew what it was, but I've never seen it. But Soylent is based on a film. What is it? It's a 1970s sci-fi film that you've seen, haven't you?
Yeah, Soylent Green. Yeah, it's like a cult film. I think it was direct to video when it came out, but it's gathered a bit of cult following over the years.
And it was about some dystopian future society, overpopulated, in which the people ate this Soylent food to survive, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that's obviously where they got the name from. Anyway, cut a long story short, this is not the whole Soylent thing is not. It's not. I need to explain it to you, but it's not the reason why I'm doing this story. So anyway, Rob Reinhardt, he started a company called Rosa Labs to make Soylent. He got $3 million worth of crowdfunding finance, and earlier this year he got $20 million in venture capital funding. But the Soylent product itself that they're selling, that Rosa Labs are selling, is only available in the US and Canada. Now, that's not what the story's about. I could also tell you about the DIY Soylent, which is what Gareth at work is using, and let me just show you that here. So there's a website called diy.soylent.com, and if you can see it, it's a website which has loads of recipes. It's a kind of open source project for this food stuff. They have loads of recipes that are submitted by people and tested, and they get a validation of how complete it is. The idea is, as I said, to have a complete nutritional food substance that anybody can survive on and live on, and have all of the nutrients. And there's various recipes on there, like I say. So it's not, but that's only another part of it. That's not the part I want to talk about. What I wanted to talk about is Soylent a food stuff that we can feed the world on, and is it the solution to world hunger? Can we use this food stuff in areas of famine? And basically, at the moment, what gets sent to impoverished areas like sub-Saharan Africa is a peanut-based paste, which is produced by a company called Mana Nutrition. It's all in sealed little sachets. They basically pull the sachet apart and squeeze this paste into their mouth. It doesn't require much preparation. It's cheap, and it can bring people back who are on the brink of starvation back to life. But it doesn't have the full range of nutritional spectrum as Soylent does. And they also have a wildly another food supplement that's produced for these type of situations, which is
it's like emergency, like nutrition to bring you.
Yeah,
back.
You've seen those. You've seen that. I think if there's any sort of area of famine that have these peanut pastes, and they also have a little like a glucose brick, little
right.
Like wafer brick,
like what they have in a ration pack or what a soldier.
That's it. Yeah. There's also this powdered milk based as well, but they're all basically just to get you through a certain amount of time. It's not that none of these are they're designed to probably rehydrate, give you some energy, bare minimum of enough to get you back from the brink of near death. But because of this Soylent is aimed, it has the whole range of vitamins and minerals and amino acids and all of this in here. You can genuinely, the idea is that you can genuinely survive on it. So this is the marine crux of what I was going to talk about.
But is Soylent, just before you go on, is Soylent for that then? I take it Soylent, if you're aiming that at people like you and I, you wouldn't want to just survive. You'd want to thrive. You want it to be at least as good as your day-to-day diet.
Well, I think Rob Reinhardt, because there's two. There's the official Soylent, which is Soylent with a capital S, and then there's the DIY stuff, which is Soylent with a lowercase s. The official Soylent is the one that Rob Reinhardt put together and his company put together. And he's always said, in the back of my mind, I've always had it that it might be good for sort of famine. But he's always said that it's a good few years away from where it's being at that stage. There's a lot of development that needs to go into it yet.
Right.
But there's other people who have, for instance, there's been dietitians from the University of North Carolina, from Purdue University in America, and they're both basically saying that it's one thing to have like 100% of your RDA in one supplement, but just on paper. But you don't know the full effect, and the fact that when you're eating foodstuffs from various different sort of situations, so like so from animal, vegetable, whatever, you're getting the vitamins and minerals from different types of types of food stuff.
Yeah,
and they don't know whether that's given everybody a proper rounded nutrition.
Yeah, although that's what they say when you're getting proteins for bodybuilding, and well, I guess it's true of most nutrients. You first of all you want to cover them all, and then you want to cover them all from as varied sources as possible. But is that not just because we don't understand the fine detail of it? Is it just that maybe if we understood how all the amino acids interacted and things like that, then you would be able to prescribe an exact.
Well, when I was reading some of the background to it and reading the articles where all of these dietitians and nutritionists and whatever they're all pretty much without fail were finding fault in it, and I suspect that a lot of that is just sour grapes from their point of view, that somebody who was not a trained dietitian had managed to come up with this.
Yeah,
because he was a software engineer. But it did seem to be a lot of that in it. It's but basically they did say that if you're going to try and use this to feed a big population, then you've got to take into account that even people who are starving are quite picky about what they're going to eat. Mm-hmm. Because by all means, the official Soylent, I've had some of the DIY Soylent that Gareth made up, and it's okay. It's all right. You can change the formula and add a bit more sort of like sugary whey powder in. But the bog standard Soylent is supposed to be completely flavor neutral. In fact, some people say it's bloody awful. Right. So and you've got to give this to some people who are dying and say, well, this is your only option. They still might not take it because you've got to bring into account how their normal diet is.
Yeah.
So if they eat a very thick porridge and you give them something that's a porridge-like substance but very thin, they might not. It's all about their own diet and their own culture.
Sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what they're saying is, does it taste good enough for the people to eat? And if basically they're saying no, it's awful. And it's not going to be nutritious unless they're actually going to eat it.
Right.
But from what I tasted in Gareth's formula makeup, it's not that bad.
But to be fair, if you talk about a situation like that, right, all you need to do is take some lead off of the likes of McDonald's or whatever, who can make. At the end of the day, you can make very nutritious food very tasty by adding loads of salt, loads of sugar, loads of whatever.
Yeah.
In mixtures that humans like to eat, but then you're obviously going to compromise the nutritional value. But anything that's optimally nutritious is always going to not taste very good, because something that's optimally tasty and optimally nutritious are not the same thing, are they? It's
true enough. Yeah, it's true enough. But you've got to give somebody a real little bit of what of something nice that humans like. And
lots of carbs would presumably be okay, but surely to solve the hunger problem, it's all about protein, is it not?
Well,
missing, isn't it, normally?
Yeah, and that's the thing, and it does have all of pretty much. Let me just choose one of these recipes. I think the best, or the most popular GB, the British version of Soylent is something called liquid cake, and it's version 1.3 is the latest version. But that's like whey protein, oats, some various husk powders, some salt, oil, and then it's got some. Well, they've got some crushed up multivitamins and mineral tablets in, which you've said as kind of debunked, really.
Yeah, multivitamins are kind of debunked.
So, and it gives you a nutritional breakdown of that particular recipe, but there's hundreds of recipes, and the official Soylent is actually suitable for vegans now, because it did used to have milk whey powder in, but now it doesn't.
Right.
So the way even Rob Reinhardt now says that the way he uses it, he still takes it every day, but he'll sometimes supplement it with a proper meal, because it could get really depressingly, because the color's not great as well. It's a sort of gray color. It's like it can only be described as if you're on a potter's wheel and you've got that slip. It's like putting the slip in it with a cup. That's what it looks like.
Yeah,
it's horrible and grey and a little bit lumpy with the oats.
Actually, thinking about the point you were making about the food that they give to the third world, it's no surprise really that it is essentially peanut butter, because when you think about it, that ticks all the boxes. It's extremely high in protein. It's extremely high in fat, which is the things that you need if you're starving to death.
Yeah, absolutely.
It also happens to taste very, very good to most people. I mean, it's the kind of thing that if you want to set a rat trap or attract basically most animals, or our dog, when we can't get out to eat, if we can't get out to eat medicine or she goes off our food or whatever, which she has a tendency to do, peanut butter is the way to get out eating again once she's had some of that. It just seems to be irresistible and nutritious, and it makes you wonder though. It's a bit risky with allergies and things, just hiring that out there, isn't it? Presumably they don't got the expense of testing allergies. And
well, to be honest, the most people, and it's fairly confident for me to say this, most people who've got those allergies are people in developed countries.
Yeah, it's to do with when you're exposed to it and how much you're exposed to and stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, people who have lived very natural, often very natural foods, very rarely have those type of allergies.
Yeah, we should do that, because that's me and Ross have kind of had a debate around that area before, and it's an interesting topic. I don't know whether there's a heritability element as well. Maybe there is. Maybe if you expose yourself to that allergen a lot, and then you can maybe pass that epigenetic on to your offspring, and then they're allergic.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know, but like you say, that would be interesting one to take on. But I think the main reason why, at the moment, why this Soylent product is probably not suitable for famine-stricken areas is that, as well as the powder, you need vegetable oil, some sort of oil, and you need water, and sometimes water is not, or clean water is not readily available. Although it's getting a lot better, there's normally a well somewhere. That is the main, unless they can make it into a sort of a sachet like the peanut butter stuff. If they can make
presumably people who are starving still have access to the water, otherwise they're already dead from dehydration.
Well, that's it. Of course, basically you've got to have some sort of liquid to keep hydrated.
Yeah,
but I think it needs. I think it needs a fair bit of water to make up a decent amount of this stuff. So it's interesting, but because at the moment the whole of this Soylent is promoted for people who are young, up and coming, haven't got time to eat, not non-foodies, anti-foodies. We're not bothered. We just want the nutrition, and then we want to get on and with our lives, man. Type of thing.
I'll tell you who else it could be good for. If you but not maybe you're not a foodie, but maybe that you just want to make sure you're getting ticking all the nutritional boxes. I can see there being a demand for that, and then just have complete meals now and again, and have this just to make sure you're ticking all those boxes. That's a good marketplace, though, isn't it?
I guess so. But is that just that's just surviving, isn't it, rather than living?
No, but I mean, like, say for instance, you're in a work situation, you work away a lot, or you don't, you've got a busy life and you don't have time to make a proper lunch. So you have like a Greg's sandwich every day, or other food retailers.
Other brands are available.
But say you have that, but then you want to make sure that as part of that meal, you've ticked a few. You could have a small portion of this and a portion of that, could you not? And then,
well, I suppose you could. You can mix and match. It doesn't say anything about that you can't do that. But I just think that if you cut out proper food, proper meals, you see, the thing is, you also cut out the social aspect, because I think what Gareth also mentioned was that he was taking this for breakfast, for lunch, and for evening meal, when the rest of the family was sitting down to a full meal, and it basically was incongruous. It just didn't fit, and he didn't feel part of the family.
I think it's the same challenge that people who are on meal replacement shakes for a diet, or people who are recovering from cancer or whatever, but also bodybuilders have that problem, because obviously they've got to be very strict in what they eat, and they've got to eat at different times to everyone else, and so I think they have that. But that would be a market for it as well, presumably, if it's if you can design the levels of protein in it, and they would eat it on top of the normal food, so they would have a normal diet, or not a normal diet, but they'd have a bodybuilder's diet of whole foods and what have you, and then they could presumably have this on top of that to get that calorie requirement if you're working out a lot, or athletes for that matter. I
guess if you you can take one of these. Let's just take another one of these recipes. If you can work out what is the bit that gives you the mass protein, you could artificially, you could change it, couldn't you? You could take some of one out and put some more of the other one in.
Well, presumably it's the whey powder, or whatever the protein powder is.
It's interesting, because there was a vegan one here. Yeah, this is it.
It'll be pea protein now.
It is actually, yeah. It's pea protein. Have you used that before?
Yeah, I've had that before. Yeah. So
it is. So the vegan one is
it's absolutely foul.
Pea protein, flaxseed meal.
Flaxseed, yeah.
So that's your omega-3 and other things. Olive oil, sunflower oil, salt, maltodextrin, which is cornstarch, isn't it?
Yep. That's bodybuilders take that as well.
Sulfur powder, and this seems to be in all of them. Choline bitartrate, which I'm not sure what that is actually. Oh, and the maltodextrin, obviously, it gives you some sweetness as well.
Yeah. So
that's an interesting one as well, and that's one of the cheapest, because they work it out like a cost per portion for like 1 day. That's £2.22. And
what's interesting about the pea protein as well is it must be just the commercials of it, because presumably they're not feeding the third world with that because of either how much it costs to produce, or what you were saying before about the taste. Because
you see, this is another thing.
Protein than you get from whey.
When we were talking about the Impossible Foods, burgers, they're doing that from a protein, from a pea or a bean protein.
Yeah.
So there's obviously something in there that's very, specifically protein nutritious in there. So.
Oh yeah, it is. Well, they just separate that out, so they just identify the thing that gives it the protein. Obviously, they don't make the full pea, because otherwise it would be there's very little protein in a pea.
Yeah.
So single that out, and I believe it's full branch chain aminos as well, which is the other thing you're looking for after you've got the protein. You want all the amino acids if you can get them, all the essential amino acids, and also it would presumably help, because if you would send it to the third world or outside of the Western world, you wouldn't want whey protein in it, because most people are lactose intolerant on this planet.
Well, that's it. You want to make it as acceptable for as many people as possible.
Yeah.
And I think what Rob Reinhardt was saying is that he wants he wants to make it all of the individual, because there's still some elements where you can't. It's not they're naturally occurring. He wants to make industrial synthesized ingredients and use them as much as possible.
Right.
But even though that some of the nutritionists say that they don't know how you can eat without some sort of agriculture as part of the fundamental core.
Corn food doesn't have any agriculture.
Well, unless growing fungi is some sort of agriculture.
Yeah, class it as that. But then anything that's manufacturing food, you're then classing as agriculture. Then basically, I suppose so.
Yeah. So this is all. It's all the basic core chemicals. That's how he's going. That's how he's going about it. He's not taking into account anything other than that. He's basically saying, if the RDA for this is this, there's your tick box. If the RDA is for this is this, there's your tick box.
Yeah. I don't see why it has to be. I think you would just be holding yourself back by making everything so that it resembles a natural product. But
the thing is, right? It's been the Institute of Medicine in the United States has met all of the recommendations they put down. It's met. It's got full FDA requirements to be sold as a food. So that's your peer reviews there.
Yeah.
They have to do all of that research, and
but that kind of just proves it's not dangerous. It doesn't prove that it's.
That's true.
It's presumably Gatorade and McDonald's and
that's true.
Stuff that's got very, very little nutrition. It's getting through that process as well.
But equally, I don't think that they promote it as a you will live off this. I think they have to still say that it's a supplement. Even Rob Reinhardt is using it as a supplement. He's still supplementing normal food with this. Now he may be taking it during the week, and at weekends he may be having normal food. I don't know how he does it. Certainly that's the way Gareth at work is doing it. He's taking Soylent during the week and having normal food at the weekend, so he can go out with his friends. He can still have social occasions around a dinner table.
Yeah.
Which you can't with a little plastic bottle. It's very hard to do that.
I'll tell you what would be interesting. I know I keep harping on about bodybuilding, but the reason that I mention it is because you obviously have to have something that's highly nutritious in order to build a huge physique. So it'd be interesting if it has uptake by those sorts of people and it works. That kind of speaks for itself, because what's always interesting is when people badmouth the vegan diet and say there's not enough protein or there's not enough this and that. There's two guys who are vegan bodybuilders who are like at a high level. It's like, well, you couldn't build that. You couldn't build that if it wasn't the case. So it's always a good thing to be able to say, if you could have that physique and from Soylent, then anyone saying, look, this can't be good for you, you just say, check this guy out. He has it.
Well, I think a lot of it is, and I would, I read up on these things. I like to keep reasonably abreast of what's happening in the food science arena. And I didn't really know about this. I knew about the company, the original Soylent, and I didn't know anything about Rob Reinhardt. I just knew there was a company doing this. But to be honest, I lumped it all in with your bodybuilding supplements.
Yeah.
I didn't realize what it was trying to be was something different. And so I guess that's one of the reasons. One of the other reasons is, of course, that it's only available in the States, and it was only started being sold in Canada this year as well. It's not over in Europe. So if you can, like I say, you can do one of the DIY recipes, but that probably does take some. It takes some, even though they allow you to order it all through Amazon. They'll do a complete recipe and say click and buy all these ingredients on Amazon. So it's fairly easy to get them. But it does require some immediate outlay. Whereas if you bought Soylent from Rosa Labs, it's all just sashayed up. So I guess that might be some of it.
The meal replacement things I was mentioning before.
Yeah.
Presumably it's a bit like just that. I mean, presumably that's a complete meal as near as it can be. If you add fiber to that, have you effectively got Soylent?
Well, what's that? Food stuff that they've been given to patients for a long time. Complan. I'm just wondering if that I don't know anything on this. Let me just do a quick search up, see what's in Complan.
Presumably that's dearer because they've got that market cornered, and that's the first thing you turn to. But it sounds a bit like that. It sounds like a cheaper version of make your own Complan essentially, but with more fiber in, I guess.
Let's just have a little see and see if it's like Complan's on Wikipedia.
That's the issue you'll find is when you try to make a liquid drink. When you try to make a meal that's a liquid without the fiber, you're going to have problems. And if you put the fiber in, you're going to have problems drinking it. That's the thing.
Yeah. I see. This is the thing. I mean, Complan doesn't give you any because it's all owned by Danone, so it's a big organization. So it doesn't give you any real nutritional breakdown. Not that I could find immediately, anyway.
I mean, it will obviously on the packet, but I don't.
Nutritional information. Hang on.
Comprised of.
Let's just see the standard Complan. So original. Let's have a look. There's a PDF here. So, so there is. You see, there's no fiber in it. There's no fiber in it, which the first thing that Rob Reinhardt found out was when on his very first trial was he hadn't put any fiber in it, and that was causing him problems in the toilet department.
It will do.
So this does have fat in, it does have carbs in, and sugars, but no fiber
by design because it'll be for people recovering from illnesses where they can't really have a lot of fiber.
Yeah, that's true.
You just want rapid absorption, don't you? You don't want the fiber slowing it down.
Yeah, but it has all. It's interesting because it does have all of the vitamins and minerals in Complan, so it's very close. Actually, that's an interesting thing. I've only just thought of that, but it does. Apart from the fiber which Soylent has, Complan has everything else. It's got milk powder, maltodextrin, lactose, vegetable oils. It is actually very similar.
I thought it would be.
So there you go. That's interesting. On that bombshell, because it just turns out we've whacked it again. 10-2.
Done it again.
Yeah, I still had a couple of other things to talk about, but I'm sure I can leave those for another day. So there you go. That is episode 38 of The Wonder of Stuff. Another doubleheader. Another one that just whizzed through without us thinking about it. If you've enjoyed yourself, please send us emails, wonderofstuff@gmail.com. or visit our blog, wonderofstuff.blogspot.com, and that's where you'll see all of the old archive of what we've covered, book recommendations. Have we still got that link to all the topics that we've covered?
Yeah, I haven't been keeping it up to date, but it's about 8 episodes behind. But yeah,
cool. So we've got a sort of list of keywords, and it takes you to the item in the video blog or the video podcast. Of where that item has been discussed. So that's quite good. Richard was doing that, and he's doing a sterling job, but then he got a job. And he got a new contract. So
no, I think I stopped. No, did I not? Did I not even keep it going for a while? But
you might have. But you've got two kids and a contract. So therefore, but we'll try and keep up with that. There's other sort of things that I'm aiming to do on there as well, which is to actually make a podcast, an audio podcast of the video and the soundtrack. So because there's lots of people at work have been saying, "Oh, it'd be great if I could listen to it through iTunes or XXX, whatever your favorite podcast application is." So I'm going to try and do that. I think there's an API that I can use, and if I write a little script, I might be able to pull them all down and put them up somewhere so we can have an RSS feed. So that would be quite cool.
Yep.
Anyway, so is that all from you, Richard? Have you got anything else?
That's it.
Okay, that's see you next time, same time, and hopefully Ross will be back, and we'll have another triple header back to normal as we're next week. So tune in for episode 39 next Sunday. Okay, that's all from us. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.